Hey there. What do you think about when the phone rings at in the middle of the night? What's the first thought that comes to your mind? I'm sure you're startled out of your sleep if you're asleep, but what is the first thing that comes to your mind? It's probably something similar to what's wrong or I know something is wrong. Well, we're going to talk about a mindful way to respond to an emergency, and we'll get started in just a few minutes. Hi, I'm Marcelin Bailey of ML Bailey Consultants, and you are inside of Stress Talk. I believe that there's a better way to address overwhelming stress. For many working women, we just struggle through it, we ignore it, or we seek relief through temporary tips that we've gotten off of the internet. Well, I've learned a few things having experienced overwhelming stress, and that's what we talk about here on Stress Talk. Well, today I wanted to share with you some thoughts about how to respond in a mindful way when faced with an emergency. This is very important because we're talking about our thoughts and how our thoughts impact how we feel, and how we feel in turn influences our stress levels. And so when we are startled in the middle of the night by the phone ringing, we have an immediate reaction. We are startled. So the stress response has already kicked in. Our hearts are probably beating faster. Our blood pressure has shot up. Our muscles are tense, and we're ready to rock and roll, right? The thing is, when we realize it's a phone that's ringing, we begin to think about things. We begin to think about things like, oh my goodness, what is it? It's an emergency. Is something wrong? Is someone sick? Has something happened? And we churn up that stress response. Remember in a previous video, in a previous episode, I talked about how we can rev up the stress response just like we rev up a car engine. This is really no different. So when you're thinking about, you begin to think, what's going on? What's happening? What's wrong? I know there's something wrong. You're starting to rev up your engine. So when you get out of bed, and if you're like me, you probably stumble out of bed because you're asleep, you're trying to answer the phone, you're trying to figure out what's going on. When you finally get to the phone, your heart is pounding. And you're like, hello, what is it? What is it? Right? Occasionally, it may be a wrong number. We've had a few of those. 2 o'clock in the morning, we get a wrong number. Somebody called, well, anyway, a wrong number. Not only that, if it's someone you care about, once you see it on the caller ID, your heart starts beating even faster. Because then you really begin to imagine all kinds of things that could be happening. Well, I want to propose 4 things that we can do in order to be more mindful when we're addressing emergencies. And I'm calling a phone call in the middle of the night an emergency because we know that people usually don't call in the middle of the night unless something is going on, especially when you get to be my age with a little gray hair, a little gray in your hair. So let's talk about these four things, okay? Number one, you want to be aware. And there are a couple of things you want to be aware of when you're faced with an emergency. The first thing is you want to have an awareness of how your body is feeling. What is your body telling you? We don't pay enough attention to our bodies. Our bodies constantly give us signals and signs and information, but we're not so attuned to those signals and those signs and that information, right? We tend to ignore what our bodies are telling us. And I'll give you an example. Uh, I'm trying to drink more water. I don't drink enough water. And so our household has decided to do a challenge where we drink a gallon of water a day. Well, we haven't officially started. Tomorrow is the official start day, but I decided that I was going to start early and I started drinking more water. Well, what I've recognized is that although I've been drinking more today, I am thirsty. And I recognize this sense of being thirsty because I've had the same sense before, and quite often, but I've ignored it. I've chosen not to listen to what my body says. There are other ways that we ignore our body, especially when it comes to tension. When we have tension in our neck and in our shoulder areas, what do? We just say, "Ooh, I'm tense. Ooh, what do I do?" Or do we take the time to stretch on a regular basis? Do we take the time to get up from our desk and walk for a few minutes? We tend not to, although our body is telling us that we should. So, the very first thing that we want to make sure that we're doing is we want to make sure that we are aware of what our body is telling us. When the phone rings in the middle of the night, as I said, we are startled, and that initiates the stress response. And the body goes through a, a massive, quick change when the stress response is initiated. And I've mentioned a few things. Our hearts beat harder and faster. Our blood pressure shoots up. Our stomach, our digestive system slows down. Our eyes dilate so that we can see better, especially in the dark. Our muscles tighten and they are poison, they're getting us ready to either fight or to run. And there are lots of other things that go on in our bodies. We have a rush of adrenaline in our bodies, lots of different things, right? So we want to be aware of what our body is telling us. We want to be aware of what that feels like. So, one of the things that we can do in order to prepare for that and in order to become aware is to just take a moment. Now, granted, if you're trying to answer the phone in the middle of the night to see if there's something wrong, it's difficult to take a moment, but you can take a few seconds to get your bearings, right? You want to do, and you want to practice this. Body awareness is encouraged when we do body scans on a regular basis. And a body scan is just being aware and taking notice of the various parts of your body. You start with your toes and you bring your full attention and awareness to your toes, and you slowly move up your body until you get to your head, your forehead. A body scan is a very simple thing to do. You can do it quickly, or you can do it more slowly, more deliberately, and more mindfully. So you want to make sure that you're doing body scans on a regular basis. If you're doing body scans on a regular basis, when that call comes in at 2 o'clock in the morning, you will automatically do a scan because it will be a habit. So, number one, in order to be more mindful and it'll respond to an emergency in a more mindful way, you want to be aware of what your body is telling you. Number two, you also want to be aware of your thoughts and your thought patterns. Now, we're going to be talking about thoughts for the next few weeks. Actually, we're going to talk about them for the month of March and the month of April, because thoughts influence how we feel, and those in turn influence our stress levels. So, you want to become aware of your thoughts as well as your thought patterns. So, let's talk about that for a second. An immediate reaction to getting a phone call at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning is that, oh my goodness, something is wrong. Or who's calling me at this time of night? When you see who's calling you, if it's someone you care about, someone you love, someone who's important to you or meaningful in your life, then that raises the stress level because you're probably thinking, oh my goodness, they are in danger. Oh my goodness, something is wrong in their lives. Those are thoughts that you want to be very aware of. Excuse me, I have to drink a little bit of tea. It's lemon strawberry today, just in case you wanted to know. So we want to be aware of that immediate thought because we have things called automatic thoughts, and those are the thoughts that come to us and they're so quick and they're such a habit, we don't even know we're thinking them. That's why it's very important to know what your thought patterns and your habits are all about. So if you're thinking, the phone only rings at 2 in the morning because there is an emergency, you're going to respond that way. If your thought habit is the phone rings at 2 o'clock in the morning because it's a wrong number, then you're going to respond differently, right? So you want to be aware of your thoughts, the immediate or automatic thoughts, the thoughts that pop into your head and the ones you don't notice, as well as your thought pattern. What do you immediately do? Do you immediately think the worst? Do you immediately dwell on, why is this person calling me at 2 o'clock in the morning? Do you dwell or perseverate on certain thoughts? Do you think negatively? Is it a negative thought? Oh, my sister is calling me. She needs to be, she has a flat tire at 2. Why is she out at 2? I don't have a sister, y'all. I have a brother, but I don't have a sister. But just be aware of your thought patterns and your thought habits, as well as become more aware of those automatic thoughts. When you're able to do so, then you can also begin to understand where the time frame in which your thoughts rest. Do your thoughts primarily rest in the past, where you're thinking about things that happened in the past where you're remembering events or incidents in your life and trying to work those through out as you're answering this call? Are your thoughts in the future projecting, wondering what's going to happen, what could happen? And I'll give you an example. My mother is 85 years old, and she called me one morning to, it was early, it was before 5 o'clock, which is very unusual, to say, I'm sick. I don't feel well. Now, I could very easily have oh, that was a horrible sentence. Let me try that again. I could have very easily have started to think about the future. Oh my goodness, what could be wrong? Oh my goodness, what should we do? Oh my goodness, what if it's serious? Oh my, what if she's fallen? What if, all of these things that are based on the future that we can't see. I was able to not do that, right? And I'll go into how that is. But when we settle our thoughts in the past and when they're settled in the future, that is where we become anxious. It is where our stress levels increase, and it causes us a lot of concerns. So we want our thoughts to remain in the present. And that is, as you know, a principle of mindfulness, remaining in the present. So we are talking about awareness right now. What is your body telling you? Become aware of what your body is saying. Also, being aware of your thoughts. What are you thinking immediately? What's your automatic thoughts? What are your automatic thoughts, especially during an emergency? What are your thought habits and your thought patterns like? And then, where do your thoughts rest? Do they rest in the past or do they rest in the future? And if so, how can you bring your thoughts into only dealing with the present? So let's deal with the second aspect of being a mindful way to respond when faced with an emergency. Curiosity. Curiosity is also a principle of mindfulness. And when we're curious, what's the first thing that comes to mind? We ask questions, absolutely. So, if we're asking questions, we are gathering information about the situation, about the incident. Even when the phone rings at 5 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning, we can begin to ask questions before we jump to conclusions, right? So you want to ask questions, lots of questions. Just be curious. Just be curious. Curiosity is very important and vital to being mindful. Use what you gather through your five senses because we're gathering information through our five senses: touch, smell, taste, feel, and sight, observation. What are you observing in the present? What are you hearing in the present? What are you smelling in the present? What are you feeling? And I'm not talking about emotional feeling, I'm talking about tactile. What are you feeling on your body, on your skin? Is it cool? Is it hot? What are you feeling? Also, are you tasting anything? What is the taste that is in your mouth? Use your five senses to gather information. And if you can use your five senses to gather information, you are focusing on the present, right? What is before you right now, in the right now moment? So being curious, using curiosity. So awareness of your thoughts, awareness of what your body is telling you, being curious. The third aspect of a mindful way to respond when faced with an emergency is responding in loving kindness. Loving kindness. Now, I have to tell you that loving kindness is something that must be practiced. It is not something that we do automatically. But when we are practicing loving kindness, we are actually sending kindness to others as well as ourselves. I always tell people, be cool. I tell people I work with, my clients, hey, just be cool. Be kind to yourself. Just be kind to yourself. We are very judgmental and we're very critical of ourselves and others. And when there's an emergency, we want to be kind and we want to express and send loving kindness. So, how does that happen? Well, there's a practice where you actually just verbalize it. You just say, may I be happy. May I receive joy. May I receive peace. May I be healthy. May I be whole. May I be safe. And may I have well being. May I be well. You can also say that as it relates to others. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you receive joy and peace. May you be well. May you be safe. Now, those are just terms that I use. You can certainly come up with your own. The idea is that you're not just saying these words, that they are heartfelt, that you feel them in your heart, and that as you express them, you are expressing them with a joy, with a peace, with um, a meaningfulness that means something to you as well as to others. It's very hard, I think, to um, express loving kindness to others, especially if they have not been kind to you. It is. But you also, when you express loving kindness to others, it does something within you. It helps you to feel good. It helps you to feel the same thing that you're wishing towards someone else. So expressing loving kindness, not only to others, but to yourself. Then last but not least, no judgment. 2 o'clock in the morning, the phone rings and you're startled and you're saying, what the heck is this? Who's calling me? Your stress level's gone out the roof. No judgment. What does that mean? That means that even if it's a wrong number, you're not going to say, what the heck were you thinking? And cuss the person out. Or if it's someone who you love, you care for, who is meaningful in your life, you're not going to judge them because it doesn't seem to be an emergency in your view, right? No judgment, no opinion about it, either way, right? No judgment, no opinion, no critique. No judgment, no opinion, no critique. No judgment, no opinion, no critique. You know what? That should be a model for us next week, right? Let's try that. No judgment, no critique, and no, what was the third one? No opinion. That's it. No judgment, no opinion, no critique. You stay from that because when we get into judgment and opinions and critiquing what's going on, again, that can lead to increased stress because it, it's an indication that we have negative feelings about what is occurring. So we want to make it a no judgment zone. No judgment, no opinion, no critique. Repeat that 5 times fast. No, not 5 times fast. Just repeat it. Repeat it with me. No judgment, no opinion, no critique. I know sometimes I tickle myself. Okay, so these are the things that, in order to respond to an emergency in a mindful way, these are the things that you want to focus on. You want to be aware of your body, what it's telling you, aware of your thoughts and your thought patterns and habits. You also want to be curious. Use your 5 senses to gather information in the present. What am I smelling right now? What am I seeing right now in this present moment? What am I hearing right now in this present moment? You don't want to be in the past and you don't want to be in the future. You want to be in the present. Also, expressing loving kindness to yourself as well as to others. It's very important because it's going to make you feel better. You will feel better. And last but not least, I know you know what I'm going to say. No judgment, no opinion, and no critique. You got it. You got it. Well, that's it for today. I'm glad you joined me on this Sunday afternoon. I am excited about the next 2 months where we're talking about thoughts and thinking and how it can impact our stress levels. We're having real talk, stress talk conversations to help working women go from burnout to balance. And I'm going causes of stress that you may be experiencing, as well as help you develop a plan to address it that fits you and fits your lifestyle. I'm Marcelin Bailey. I'm glad you joined me. That's it for today. As always, take good care.